Hi there, I want to talk to you today about this MT32 Pi that I've played with. I have one in the shot here somewhere, and it's a great device. And then I built this shield here from this guy, Chris, what have you, and it worked quite nicely. But then I started looking into the idea of this Mini Dexed. Mini Dexed is pretty fantastic. It gives you like a TG7 TX816 they call it there. So it's like 7 or 8 DX7s rather, all mixed together. And Floyd had done a lot of work on this, but I couldn't get the bloody thing to work. It says you can use a 5102A. It says it can use somewhere a 1306 SSD display, but I couldn't work it out. So what I did was I followed the pinouts relative to the shield from Chris, and they're pretty much the same. Okay, so then I found some stuff here about problems with displaying, and that's all very well and good. And it talked about using these addresses and things. Well, I then did some detective work and found out that my Mini Dexed or my display was on 3C. And so let me have a quick look and show you how I set the thing up. So Mini Dexed here. I'll put this on the other screen, sorry. So what I had to do was tell it I'm using an I2S device. Now, this was interesting because I thought when I looked at the Pi that my address is 1A, okay, OX1A. But it looks like I just have to say it's address no idea why. But that seems to be what you do. Maybe there's some additional meaning to what that is all about. I left all of this stuff pretty much as it was. I then cut it down and say I want an LCD enabled, I want a 1306 address, and 3C is the address of my display, 128 by 32. Don't want to rotate it at the moment. And what's kind of kinky, it needs to be 20. So really that should say 20 by 2. So it needs to be 20 by 2 rather than 16 by 2. This stuff isn't really working at the minute, but don't worry about that. I'm gonna work that out later. What else did I have to do? Rotary encoder. I left it on, but I don't have one, so maybe I need to turn that off and leave it in button mode. And then I added this debug dump on and profile enable one because I wanted to see what was going on. And I loaded that onto a Pi 02W. I made a mistake. I was putting on a Pi 0W. It just doesn't work, yeah. And let's move across to this display. So now hopefully what you can see is that the debug produces a lot of output. And what I'm using at the moment is MIDIOX to display the information and to trigger stuff. So if I push any of these keys, like a Z key, I put it on some MIDI mode. So Z, S, X, D, C, B, G, B, H, M, J, M, what's that? Comma, L, dot. So that will do. No, I don't know if any sound's coming out of the actual device, but it will come out of the thing. The next thing that I found you have to do, if we go back to this screen here, there's a script that they provide, get.sysx. So let's just open that with a text editor or Notepad will do. And what it's doing is going to a particular website, and you see it's renaming the ROM1A to this. It has to have all these digits in it. And it has to put it in SysExVoice. So what I did was I ran this on a Unix computer. In fact, I ran it on WSL on Windows, which is basically an Ubuntu. And then I copied that onto the device, the SD card. So it puts it in voice, you end up with this, okay? That then allows us to use, I'll show you where it comes from, use the view control panel. And then under there, you can say to it, okay, I'd like to send an MSB. And the display isn't showing any difference here, whereas on the MT32 it does. But if I click here, it is actually sending different information to the key. I don't know if it's making it. I don't know if it's coming out. I can't hear it, so I'm assuming it isn't. But that's how I can at least manually play with the Dexed at the minute. So at the moment, I'm able to use the existing MT32 Shield with Mini Dexed with all the same hardware. There's one thing I will show you. I'll just turn this off for a second and I'll bring it into the camera view. I didn't have to do this because my board was already like this. I'll just solder PCM 5102 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try that. Yeah, here we go. So you see it's telling you got these things like this, and pin 3 high means mute off, or pin 3 low means the chip is muted. So what they're saying is if your pin 3 is stuck on low, and let me just check mine. My pin 3 is on high. So if it's on low, you won't hear anything. If it's not soldered, you won't hear anything. Okay, so this is why they say that you need to check your soldering on the bottom of these things. But once I've done all that, it seems to have worked, and that's pretty cool. So that's all I wanted to say is you can use the existing hardware of your Chris Shield for the MT32, and it kind of works. I mean, there's a bit more work to do with the control, but you can send MIDI to it, and you can use MIDIOX to do that. So that's what I'll be doing later on in the week. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye.